Welcome to episode 125 of I Thought I Knew How, a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts. I'm your host, Anne Frost, and this episode was recorded on November 25th, 2024. I'm here today to offer some real, tangible help for those who are trying to shop for a knitter for the holidays this year. If you're a knitter, be ready to add things to your wish list. If you were sent this by a knitter, get ready to click on some links. Let's get started. I know that holiday shopping can be tricky, especially if you're buying for someone who seems like they already have everything, or if you are trying to buy someone with a hobby or interests that you don't know a lot about yourself, something that they're really going to enjoy. If you are listening as a knitter and you like some of the ideas, you can use this information to create a wish list for yourself, or just send the website for the episode to those who will be gifting your way and say, have at it. Even better, have them listen, because I actually have some advice connected that should make some of their decision making a little easier. A few things before we begin though. First, I'm going to offer some cautionary advice. When I was maybe 21 or so, I went to visit a friend and stayed at their grandma's house while I was visiting. She was such a sweet lady and I enjoyed my time with her, but her house was full of pigs. Not actual pigs, mind you, but pigs. Her name was Charlotte, and somewhere along the way, someone thought it would be cute to get her a little ceramic pig in reference to Charlotte's Web. And basically, everyone in her life jumped on this idea as an easy way to buy a gift for her. And she had a big family, and she kept all of these pig gifts. And every surface of her house was full of pig statues, and there were pig rugs on the floor and paintings of pigs. And her whole kitchen was pigs. And she was such a nice lady that she just sort of rolled with it. But I can think of no worse fate than to have a clever gift idea like that just become the way my whole family sees me and have it take over my entire home. So as I offer these gift suggestions, I want to caution you to remember that even the most obsessive knitters in the world have more to their personalities than knitting. Buying something for a knitter should not just be they'll like this and be done with it sort of gift. As I offer gifting suggestions, I'm going to talk you through the reasoning behind the suggestions and how to gauge whether it's something your knitter might appreciate. Second, all of these suggestions are intended to work no matter what you're celebrating. While some are season-specific to winter, and I apologize to those of you listening in the Southern Hemisphere, none of them are specific to any religion, and most would work in any gifting situation for a knitter, birthdays, retirement, whatever. Everyone's welcome here. If I do mention Christmas at some point, it's just because I was raised Christian and that's my frame of reference, so it's what popped out of my mouth in the moment. But the list I'm actually working from has been compiled to work for any knitter at any time. Third, I will also add that some of the links are affiliate links, meaning that if you click to the item using the link I provide, I'll get a small commission from the seller for sending you to them. That said, I only recommend products I love. The commission does not increase the price for you, and the funds that I receive offset the costs of the podcast. Not all of them are affiliate links, and I'll try to offer at least 2 options for most of the suggestions I have that will represent different sources and different price points. Finally, as we go through this episode, I'm going to break up the gift suggestions into 4 groups. Things that are knitting adjacent, meaning they don't directly connect to knitting but would be nice for a knitter to have. Things that can be used for knitting and more, meaning that they will help your knitter with their craft and serve their larger life as well. Things directly related to knitting, that's where you'll find suggestions like tools and yarns. And finally, little gifts that would be more suitable for stockings or gift exchanges or gifts for members of our knit clubs as the holidays come up. Each section will be separated with a song, so if you're listening and you want to jump to a certain section, you can use those songs as signposts for the start of each section, except for section 1, which we're going to start now. Now, again, thinking of dear Charlotte and her house full of piggies, I'm going to start by recommending items that a knitter will likely appreciate but don't directly relate to knitting. First, a wool blanket. We in the Northern Hemisphere are entering the dark, cold time of year, and a nice blanket or throw over your legs while you knit is a joy. Knitters know about fiber content, and a lot of the fluffy blankets out there that are selling for $10 or $20 are basically made of plastic, and they end up being sweaty rather than warming. I upgraded to a wool throw a few years ago, and it is a delight. The one I bought is available on Amazon. It's a great throw blanket size, and it adds color to our living room. In fact, it's available in 8 colors. So as you think about what color to pick, look around your living room and see if any of the colors available on the Amazon page appear in the room in small doses already. Like one of the options is light blue. Is there maybe a lamp that has a base that's light blue and a bit of light blue and something hanging on the wall? That might be a good sign that a light blue throw would look good in the room. Pick a color that's in the room already in small doses, but isn't the exact same color of the furniture, so it has some contrast. Another option for a wool blanket is the Connecticut blanket, which is made using wool from wool producers in Connecticut that's all pooled together, spun up, woven into blankets, and then lightly felted. It's a denser fabric than the first blanket I suggested, so it's warmer. It comes in a variety of sizes. It's a little trickier to shop for, though. The link in the show notes will take you to a page about the blanket, and if you scroll to the bottom of the page, you'll get a list of people who are selling it, and only one of them has an online shop, and the only size they still have available is a queen. But the other places have email links so you can contact them via email. This is the more expensive option, but it's a more traditional style wool blanket. It has a nice plaid design, and as I said, it's a thicker fabric. And most of the sizes are bed sizes, but go ahead and contact the people who are listed and see what sizes they have available. The next suggestion would be some warming beverages of their choice. Is your knitter a tea drinker, a coffee drinker, a hot chocolate drinker? If they have put in the time themselves to find the hot beverage that they love the best, or if you were out one day together and they had a hot drink that they super loved, get them that. Just get them that. They will likely love it. But if you have a knitter in your life who likes a warm beverage in the evening, I'll put a list of suggestions in the show notes for you. As you pick, keep in mind the time of day that you see your knitter knitting and choose accordingly. If they're an evening knitter, maybe stay away from the caffeinated teas and coffees, opt for a hot chocolate or an herbal tea. And my final suggestion for a knitting adjacent option is a calendar. There are lots of folks out there producing calendars that would appeal to knitters. As we all start moving to put everything on our devices, I still love having a physical calendar visible somewhere in my house that I can just look at and get the general information I need quickly without having to grab a phone and swipe or tap 5 times to find what I'm looking for. My absolutely favorite calendar that is related to knitting is produced by Jo Skye on Instagram. She has a large flock on the Isle of Skye and is also a brilliant photographer. The images are gorgeous. The only way to order this, though, is by messaging her on Instagram, and she'll send you PayPal instructions, but it's all very simple. I'll put a link to her Instagram post about the calendar so you can see them. I've gotten one of her calendars each year since she started making them, and I can't imagine my year without them now. An alternative calendar recommendation, if Joe's is sold out, would be one called Lammies and Jammies and Goats and Coats. The name says it all. Find the link in the show notes. Let's have a song break. This pick is from a familiar artist on the show. This is an instrumental number from Tom Goldstein called Berlin. It has a lovely motivational feel to it. If you have had a task you've been putting off getting done, this song is going to move you through it. I will see you on the other side. Okay, let's dive right in with our dual purpose gifts, the gifts for knitters that will help them with their knitting lives as well as other life uses. First one, a good sized digital device that runs either iOS or Android operating systems. This could be an iPad mini or a full iPad or an Amazon Fire or a Samsung Galaxy. I'm not being brand loyal for this. I have an iPad and I love it, but the point of your knitter having one of these is that it will give them access to a fantastic app for knitters called Knit Companion. Even if they already have the device, brilliant. Get them a subscription to Knit Companion. It's actually free, but there's some more functionality to it at the base subscription level that's really nice. And I think it's like under $25 for the year for that base subscription. Knit Companion allows knitters to keep digital copies of their patterns all in one place, and it has ways to keep track of where you are in the pattern. It has built-in row counters. It can alter the colors in the charts, which is really handy for knitters who do color work. They can also add notes to remember any alterations they made. It's a brilliant program that was designed by a coder who is also a knitter, so it really gets the needs of knitters. There's a ton of video support on the website for the app, so if your knitter is tech challenged, you can help them get started. It's just a great program, really. I'm going to put some links to the devices that can use it, as well as the website for the app in the show notes. Another item is a good pair of noise-canceling headphones. Knitting is a great time for watching a show or listening to an audiobook or podcast, and a good set of headphones that will allow your knitter to do that in peace is a fabulous gift. I'll put a few suggestions, of course, in the show notes. Next suggestion, good lighting. As I get older, I appreciate good lighting in general, but especially when I'm knitting. Now, there are ways to handle this. You can look at the space where they like to knit and see what the lighting is like, and upgrade the lamp they have with a sort of general type lamp that will allow them some more directional lighting aimed more toward their work. I'll throw some suggestions in the list of links. You could also opt for a light specifically designed for crafters that have a special light bulb that allows for a full spectrum of light, which is really helpful not just for seeing better, but for seeing colors better. Again, I'll have some suggestions in the links. Another option is to pick up a neck lamp for them. These actually sit across the back of the neck and have two arms that are posable and can shine right on their knitting. This has been my favorite form of added light for the last several months because the way our living room is set up, it doesn't really allow for a lamp where I like to knit. Plus, I can take it with me to knit nights and on flights. I have two of these styles of lights, and the one I prefer is made by a company called Lumos. I like them so much and I talk about them so often that I actually have a coupon code from them to share with my listeners that will get you 30% off your purchase until December 2nd. So act fast. If this sounds like something your knitter will like, the link is in the show notes to lumos.com, and then at checkout, use the code ANNE30 to get the discount. So that's all caps ANNE30 to get that 30% off discount. One more suggestion for this area. Okay, world, if you've met me, you know I have got a booty. The one thing I've noticed about my booty is that it tends to mean that I don't tend to sit properly in chairs because my bum hits the chair well before my back does. And I have noticed that there's a lot of us knitters who have a bit of a booty. So I'm going to suggest a comfy cushion. Now you can go for a full-on heated lumbar support cushion if you think that that extra feature is going to help out your knitter. I'll throw a link for one in the show notes, but also just a rectangular cushion about 12 by 18 inches that your knitter can tuck behind their back. That might be just the thing for them. I'll link to one that's available on Amazon that we have in our home that comes in 13 different colors. And again, as you pick a color, look for one that will stand out against the knitter's seat, not blend in with it, and pick a color that matches colors already present in the room in small doses. Okay, next segment, we're going to move into knitting tools and yarns and such, but first we're going to take another song break. Time to clean something, or knit a few rows, or do a quick errand. This is Lake Michigan by Nicholas Rowe. Back soon.
chest. So I like to keep it locked and hidden underneath my vest. 'Cause I've been hurt before. Don't you leave me in Chicago. What did you come here for if you won't be here tomorrow? I know my voice is quiet, baby, but my heart is so loud. So many things that I wanna say, but you know they won't come out. 'Cause I've been hurt before. Don't you leave me in Chicago. Tell me, what did you come here for if you won't be here tomorrow? I went down to the waterfront docks where we walked the night we met. Went to our usual meeting spot and I found the note you left. Then I watched dark clouds roll in and swallow up Lake Michigan. And I rode that storm back home. My sorrow until I write a song or two. I'm gonna sit in silence until I can finally hear the truth. 'Cause I've been hurt before. Why'd you leave me in Chicago? Baby, what did you come here for if you won't be here tomorrow? I went down to the waterfront docks where we walked the night we met. A distant thunder from far off, so I turned to face the wind. And I watched the dark clouds roll in and swallow up Lake Michigan. And I rolled that storm back home. Yeah, I watched the dark clouds roll in and swallow up Lake Michigan. And I rode that storm back home.
Okay, let's jump in with our actual knitting-related gift suggestions. First, you are going to need to be observant of your knitter. What types of things do they tend to knit? What types of yarns do they use and why? Do they always knit with needles that are straight, or do they use needles that form a circle as they use them? Are they sometimes crocheting using one hook instead of two needles? When they wash their knits, do they have a place to dry them that's out of the way, or do they try to dry them on furniture or sections of carpeting? What sorts of knitting do they do? Is it just plain sort of knitting, or do they do knitting that has lots of colors in it? Or do they do knitting that looks like the stitches are moving across the surface in different textures? Or does it have lots of holes in it? Or is it like three-dimensional, like toys? I'm going to ask you to stop and really think about those questions for a moment, and maybe even pause and poke around in some of their knitting supplies and see if you can gather some answers before we proceed, because those answers are going to help you decide which of the following options are the best for your knitter. I'm going to start by being a little controversial. Unless your knitter has specifically asked for a certain kind of yarn, or unless they have a yarn producer or a dyer that you know for a fact they are big fans of, I would suggest you not try to just randomly buy them yarn. The exception would be if you yourself are a knitter gifting to another knitter and you have a yarn that you know they would enjoy. If you're not a fellow knitter, rather than just buying them some random yarn, I would suggest you instead buy them a kit. A kit will come with all the yarn your knitter needs and the pattern, and sometimes some little tools and things that are required to knit the item. A kit that your knitter likes is more likely to be knit than just some random yarn that you are choosing without their input. I will link to a few online shops that sell good quality knitting kits with great yarns and good designs. Some of them will even let you customize the kits with appropriate colors. And again, if you're stumped about what colors to choose for your knitter, think about the 3 items of clothing that they wear the most and choose one of those colors. Off the top of my head, I know I'm going to list Morehouse Farm and Uradale yarns as 2 options because I know they both have a lot of kits. But I'll look around a bit more and see if I can come up with more from yarn producers that also have a lot of kits from other countries, so you can order something relatively local to where you are because international shipping has gotten ridiculous. Another option would be to gift a knitting book. And if you are going to be getting them the Knit Companion subscription I mentioned earlier, you might want to get them the digital versions of these books so they can use the patterns in the app or just read them on their devices. But they're all available as print, and print books are certainly easier to open under the tree or at the gift table or whatever. The first book is one I haven't talked about on the podcast yet. It's called Memory Lane, Embellished Knits to Cherish by Claudia Quintanilla. It has a large selection of classic styles that feature color work, textured knitting, lace, and plain knitting. So no matter what your knitter makes, there's likely going to be an option in this book that they will want to knit. Some of the patterns read as strongly feminine, but there are several patterns that work for people who prefer neutral styling, and choosing a different yarn for some of the patterns would carry them into a more masculine range. Overall, I think this would be a great book to get for any knitter who's interested in knitting tops, sweaters, cardigans, or tanks. The photography is beautiful, and it's been produced by Lane Publishing, which is a well-established publisher, so you can trust that it's been properly edited. And if there are any mistakes found, your knitter will be able to find corrections at the website. That's a big deal for knitters. It can be really frustrating to be trying to knit a pattern that has a mistake in it, and you try and finally figure out, there's a mistake, and then there's no help in trying to fix the mistake. So Lane Publishing, trusted publishing house. Other books I'll suggest quickly because I've talked about them in more detail in other episodes. If your knitter has been spotted crocheting, Julia Medill's Every Way with Granny Crochet is a great book that takes granny squares in new directions. If your knitter is really interested in the act of knitting and improving their skills, then Patty Lyon's Knitting Book of Tricks and the accompanying workbook would be a great help to them. I would say with this particular one, check around the house and make sure they don't have it because it was sort of the hot knitting book of this year. The Journal of Scottish Yarns is basically a new book twice a year, focusing on all sorts of yarn and yarn crafts based in Scotland with a selection of patterns at the back of the book each time. One last selection for books. I'm not going to be specific for this one. If your knitter made an emotional support chicken this year or has made knitted toys in the past, there seems to be an upswelling of knitting animals going on. But I find that people have strong preferences for certain animals. So I'll throw a link to a list of knitting books that deal with knitting all sorts of different animals, and you can look for the one that features the animal that your knitter loves. When it comes to tools, I'm going to hold off on some of the tools I'm going to recommend because they fit in with the next segment of suggestions better. But thinking about how your knitter washes and dries their knits. If it seems like they're just making do however they can to get it done, You might want to consider getting them some blocking mats, which would allow them to pin out their knits so they can dry in the proper shape, as well as blocking wires, which can make that shaping process easier. And if they happen to knit a lot of sweaters and you really want to treat them, there are these things called jumper boards that are a configuration of wooden slats in the shape of a sweater that your knitter can adjust to fit their sweater exactly and allow it to dry upright. But yarn types vary. If your knitter is knitting sweaters in merino wool and other super soft natural fibers, chances are that a jumper board will not be a good idea because those sweaters need to dry flat. But if your knitter does a lot of color work knitting with wools that aren't super duper soft, a jumper board would likely serve them well. Another tool often coveted by knitters is a ball winder and swift combo. The swift looks sort of like an umbrella contraption, or it might be a crossbar with pegs. Both of them spin while holding a circle of yarn while they wind it into a ball. The ball winder is the device that does the actual ball winding. If your knitter has one or the other, get them the other. If they have neither, you will make their life so much nicer by getting them the swift. If you can only afford one thing, get them both if you can afford both. I'll put ones I use and love in the show notes. Another option if your knitter has pets is a yarn bowl, which keeps their yarn contained either on the floor or up on a table so your animals don't run off with it. I'll link to an example on Amazon, but a lot of woodworkers and ceramicists make these days, including the fellow I linked to for the jumper boards. If you have local folks making them, have a look at theirs and shop local. One more thing to consider is an organizational system for your knitter if they don't have a way to keep their needles all neatly in one place. And saying that, I will note that some knitters like having their needles visually displayed. So if they have like all their straight needles in a vase, for instance, that may be exactly how they want them. But if they're always looking around everywhere trying to find where this or that needle is, or they're just sort of around everywhere or sitting in a heap somewhere, they might really like an organizer. There's 3 types of organizers out there that I think most people prefer. The first one is the roll. This one is good for crochet hooks and straight needles. It's basically a strip of cloth with pockets that will allow your knitter to slide their needles in and then roll it up and fasten it closed. The best ones will also have a flap at the top when it's unrolled so that when you fold the flap over before rolling it up, it'll prevent the needles from sliding out the top. The other 2 types are best for circular needles that are called that, again, because they're the ones that form a circle when you use them. One type is a hanging organizer that has slots, horizontal slots that your knitter can slide their needles into. These hang from a hook on the wall or from a coat hanger or from a curtain rod. Look at how they hang when you're considering which one to buy. Consider where your knitter would probably use it and make sure you get one that has the appropriate top. If you're going to get one that needs to be hung on the wall, you should consider it a display item and pick one that has a visually interesting look to it. Mine is actually the style meant to hang from a hanger, but it's so pretty. I have it on the hanger and then hanging from the wall. The slots are labeled with the needle sizes typically, and because some needles don't match the official sizes, it can be helpful to find one that has a few unlabeled slots too. I think this option is good for people who have a lot of circular needles, like 20 pairs or more. Otherwise, this kind of organizer is just kind of overkill. I'll link to a few options. The other type for storing circular needles is like a binder with pockets. Again, these tend to have labeled sections or pockets that your knitter can put their circulars in. It's a more portable option, but if they have tons and tons of circular needles already, you may want to get them a couple of these. Again, I'll put some options in the show notes. If your knitter is just getting started and hasn't accumulated a lot of needles yet, you might want to kill several birds with one stone and invest now in an interchangeable set of knitting needles. These come with a selection of different size tips and different length cords that your knitter can pair together according to what they need for the project that they are working on. I personally am not a fan of this style of needle, which is why I have a bajillion circular needles, but they are definitely a space and money saver to just get one of these kits early in the game. And a lot of people really love their interchangeables. I'll link to 3 options that I know have a very good reputation in the show notes. And I'm just going to say, you really get what you pay for with these, and they should be looked at as a one-time investment that should last your knitter their whole lives. If you go over to Amazon and look for these, you're going to see kits available for $25, $35. I would not trust those kits. Quality really matters when it comes to interchangeable needles. If your knitter really geeks out over heritage and historical knitting and you want to gift them something interesting, there's a thing called a knitting belt that is now only really used in Shetland and by those who have heard about them and want to give them a try. They require extra long double-pointed needles and they tend to be used by lace and Fair Isle knitters. If you want, there's a woman in Shetland named Jeanette Budge who sells the belts and the needles, as well as classes online to show people how to use the belt, with meetups afterward to answer any questions. You could get your knitter a belt, a set of size 3mm needles, and the classes to get them started and see if they like it. And if they do, they can carry on getting the needles as they need them for projects. I will link to Jeanette's site for those. One more song break, and then we'll be back with the little in size gifts for knitters. This is another song written by Tom Goldstein, but you'll hear it was not sung by him. This is Lost.
Lost inside my mind, so long, I've tried to fly alone. Time goes by and I'm still lost. My thoughts are alive, they are burning in my bones. Looking back at all my life, I would never change a thing. With all the hard times, it's all about being real. When I told you that I loved you, I meant every word I said. But sometimes time gets involved and nothing stays the same. Look, I thought I can run away, far away, but it's getting really hard every day. Looking back at all my life, I would never change a thing. With all the hard times, it's all about being real. When I told you that I loved you, I meant every word I said. But sometimes time gets involved and nothing stays the same.
Okay, this last set of recommendations is meant for gift exchanges with fellow knitters, stocking or advent fillers, little gifts for Hanukkah nights. Mainly what we're looking for here are gifts that are small in size, and for the most part, they're not terribly expensive, though there are some that can get, there are options for it to be a more expensive purchase. First, some inexpensive things that you can get a bunch of for your knitting buddies without breaking the bank. I have 3 things for this that I really love. Bright little scissors with protective tips, glass nail files, and measuring tapes. They are the kind of things that knitters are always misplacing or wishing they had at hand. So even if they already have a few, one more is going to be welcome. They can all be bought in lots from Amazon at affordable prices too. I'll throw the links in the show notes. Another small gift that can be looked at in two ways. You can get ones that are inexpensive because your knitter is losing them all the time, and so inexpensive versions won't be regretted when they go missing. Or you can go for the more expensive options that add bling to your knitter's work and are easier to see if they run away and are more likely to not go permanently missing. I'm talking about stitch markers. They can be as simple as a metal or plastic ring or as decorative as a piece of jewelry. I'll put 4 options at different price points in the show notes. The first option has been around forever. The second are bulb-style safety pins in a cute container. The third is for 1,500 bulb-style safety pins for the same price as the ones in the cute container. And the last are some cutesy ones. Another item that has just come out in the last few years and some knitters really love are Barber cords. There are several things that your knitter can do with them, including holding on to live stitches while they try something on or making it easier to pick up stitches. I, in all honesty, am not a fan of them because they don't work well with the yarn I tend to use. But it's the kind of thing that's so in the knitting zeitgeist at the moment that if I don't mention them, I'm going to have people saying that they can't believe I didn't mention them. And also, they're the kind of thing that someone has taken and cut to length and put in a tin and then charged 10 times as much for. The only reason they're called Barber cords is because the first person who did this is known as the knitting barber. You can get quote-unquote official Barber cords already cut to size in tins, or you can get a roll of silicone tubing that's 2 millimeters wide with a 1 millimeter opening and let your knitter cut it to the size they need to fit their purposes as they need it. With both the stitch markers and the Barber cord, consider whether your knitter would like not just the item, but the cute packaging, or if they'd rather have enough to last them for the rest of their lives and never have to worry about it again. I used to be the former. I was all about the cute little packaging, and I'm definitely now the latter because I'm old and cynical. But remember that gifts should please the receiver, and if your knitter will be happier with the cute packaging, just go with that option. Don't tease or moan because you know the secret of what these things really cost when you just buy them on their own. Let them have their joy. And this brings us to knitting jewelry. There are earrings made from little balls of yarn. There are earrings made of silver that look like balls of yarn. There are barrel charms that are suitable for Pandora-type jewelry. There are pendants and rings and bracelets. I will put a selection in the show notes, including options by small makers and fine jewelers, but really, if you just go over to Etsy.com and enter knitting jewelry and see what pops up that's made by makers in your country, you're going to find something. And finally, and of course, don't forget the gift card options. A lot of knitters are very particular and they don't want to ask for knitting things because they know exactly what they like and they don't like. And they want to make sure that they just go and get it themselves. Or they just like shopping. Or they want to pick out colors for themselves. Or they know something they really want is headed to stores soon but isn't available yet. Gift cards are great for knitters. If your knitter has a local yarn store, go by and ask if they offer gift cards. If not, put some money in a card that says they have to spend it on themselves in the yarn store. Or if you don't have a local yarn store near you at all, I'll put a few links in the show notes to online yarn shops in various countries that do gift cards. International shipping is nuts, so look for an option in your country or your shipping region and get a gift card from there. There are other things you can do too, like knitting themed stickers or enamel pins. Those are usually things that are easiest to find by going into your local yarn shop. You can also find them on Etsy, or you can do a search for them on Amazon. I will say be careful about knitting stickers on Amazon. A lot of them are designed by AI and they offer a huge number of them, and then you get them and a lot of them are just sort of nonsense. I would say pick a sticker that is a sticker. You can see it's cute and knitting themed and that your knitter will like it. It's going to cost you more to just get one sticker, but you're going to get one good sticker. I'm not going to bother linking to those. You can, again, just go to Amazon or Etsy or the local yarn shop and see what they have. Knitters who are listening, I know that there are more things out there. I'm just trying to make this easy on the people who will be gifting to you. And this is the first time I've done a list like this. So this is the baseline stuff. Next year, we'll go deeper into the weeds. I hope that everyone found this helpful. The show notes is where the gold is this time, folks. Send this episode around. Tag your partners and your kids and your knitting groups. Let's make this holiday season a little easier and a little more knit-filled. A few more things before I go. The Woolly Winter Countdown kicks off on December 1st on the Purl Together YouTube channel. That is where you will find me every morning of December as Jana Strahan and I open our mystery yarn boxes together. If you are one of the people who got one of the Shetland Hogmanay boxes, this is it. Get that box ready and join us every morning so we can open it up together. This year, in a surprise twist, there will also be a daily giveaway through the month. I have a bunch of odds and ends left over from Stitch and Pitch and Patreon gifts and other giveaways, and I want to just get them all to good homes and out of mine. Unfortunately, again, because of international shipping, the giveaway is only going to be available to those who are within the US. For more information about how the giveaways will work, be sure to watch day 1 of the Woolly Winter Countdown over on the Purl Together channel on December 1st. I will probably not be back in this form until 2025. Between school and the daily vlogs with Jana and the holidays and the kids all being home, I'm going to be busy. If you'd like, hop over to IthoughtIKnewHow.com and get on the mailing list to stay abreast of what I'm up to, or keep an eye on the Woolly Winter Countdown, or at I Thought I Knew How on Instagram. And if I don't see you in one of those places before the new year, I hope you have a lovely December and a very happy new year. In the meantime, thank you for listening and knitting with me for a bit. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review the show in the app you use to download it. And I'd love it if you would share the episode with a friend. And many thanks to those of you who have been rating and reviewing the episode. I did go through and read the ones on iTunes recently, and it was just so kind. Thank you so much. The show notes are where you will find links to the things mentioned in the show, so be sure to check those out. Find me on my social media accounts as I Thought I Knew How. The groups on various platforms are all called I Thought I Knew How Podcast. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.